I said, what's up, y'all? Look at me when I'm talking to you, bro. Nah, I'm just messing with y'all, man. This is your boy Knockout Boxing 86 TV, and we in here. So check this out, bro. Before we get going on our video, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, share the video, turn on your notifications, and go follow me on Twitter at KOBoxing86 TV. And if you got a breakdown or a prediction you want me to do, knockoutboxing86 at yahoo.com is the email address. And don't forget about our live shows. We live every Wednesday and Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And you can also catch me live every Sunday morning with the singing OG KQKC Boxing Network, Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. But let's go ahead and get it popping and get into our video. And today, we got to talk about Terence Crawford, what he said to Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo. We got to talk about Jermell Charlo's broken hand. We got to talk about how what all this means, man, and how we could how all this means and how it ties together, and kind of how it could help us get the Errol Spence Terence Crawford fight that we all want. So first and foremost, Terence Crawford tweeted out 2 days before Christmas. He said, "All twin Charlo, I see why you had your pom-poms on so heavy. At Errol Spence Jr. is your daddy." So it makes sense now. You should have just said that, man. My bad, EJ, for talking to your son like that. Let's keep it on you. I'll take you to the fish fry after I fillet you. You know, talking this shit on Twitter. And then Jermell Charlo was also going on right now that y'all know about that I ain't spoke on yet. Jermell Charlo broke his hand. So the Jermell Charlo Tim Tszyu fight has been postponed for January 28th. And so we don't have a new date for it, but it's not going down on January 28th anymore because Jermell Charlo suffered an injury. So let's tie all this together, and let me tell you why this means, in my opinion, that, it's a good sign for the Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford fight. Like, all of these things, in my opinion, are like blessings in disguise. You feel me? And so, including the Errol Spence accident, I already spoke on how I believe his car accident could help us get the Terence Crawford fight sooner, not later, but we'll tie it all together. So first, what Terence Crawford actually said in his tweet, here's my thing, bro. Like, you should have been solely focused on Earl anyway. And in my opinion, if you really wanted smoke like that with both of them, you could have signed a 2-fight deal. You could have asked for a 2-fight deal if that's what you really wanted, but to my knowledge, you only asked for an Errol Spence fight. So you've been saying shit about Jermell Charlo, but in negotiations, it's all been one and done. You only want Earl. So I feel what you're saying, but if that's what you wanted, like as you stated, then you could have tried to see if you would be able to sign the fight Earl, and then if you beat Earl and he don't want no rematch, you don't want no rematch, then see if they can get Jermell Charlo to sign on the dotted line to fight you moving up to 154, if that's something that you really wanted. So I hear the talk on Twitter from Terence Crawford, but it's the same as that spin the block shit. It's the same as that, just giving you a heads up shit. Like, you got Errol Spence's number, so anything that you trying to tweet at him, anything you trying to say to him in the public, like, just call that man behind closed doors. That's what I believe in. And then I told y'all from the jump, bro, he ain't getting Jermell Charlo. And Errol Spence confirmed that. And it behooves Terence Crawford to do what he said. Let's just focus on you. I'm going to fry you and then, fillet you, take you to the fish fry, whatever the fuck, bro. Do that shit then. Do that shit then. You know what I mean? Like, let us see it, bro. Let the fans see it. But that was always the only option for him anyway. No way, shape, or form is the PBC allowing any fighter to skip the line for a Terence Crawford fight over Errol Spence. None of them dudes that they got at 147, none of them dudes that they got at 154. Ain't nobody getting the Terence Crawford fight unless it's Errol Spence, bro. So, and that's just because he the cash cow over there. He the man. He the one that he get the fight. So if he want to fight a fighter, ain't nobody skipping the line for him, because there's more money for them if Errol Spence get the fight. And there's more money for them in the future keeping Errol Spence happy, being the star that he is, one of the biggest names in boxing. So I already told y'all that shit never made no sense. Him fighting Jermell Charlo before he would ever fight Errol Spence. And then again, the mandatory shit, Tim Tszyu is mandatory, and that leads me into the Jermell Charlo injury. So Tim Tszyu is his mandatory, so Terence Crawford can't just come up and skip Tim Tszyu. Furthermore, the injury with Jermell Charlo and how this ties in and how it could lead to us getting the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight sooner than we had expected, and hopefully by the summer of 2023, and also how the accident helps all of that. It's very simple, bro. Like, number one, people accusing Jermell Charlo of faking an injury or some shit, bro. Get all the way out of here. That man ain't duck no wreck. He ain't duck no smoke. He took on all comers. He done fought everybody they put in front of him. He done went and got the smoke the right way. So we don't have no reason to believe that he will lie about an injury. But there is a but to that. It do speak to a bigger problem in boxing, y'all. And it's a problem I've been talking about on my channel. I've been preaching about on my channel. They should have to tell us as fight fans. If we spend our money to go to these fights, putting money in the fighters' pockets because of the revenue that we help them generate, buying these Showtime subscriptions, getting the DAZN subscription, buying pay-per-views when people fighting on pay-per-view that we want to see fight, all these things that we do to generate revenue, you should at least have to show us that that you really are hurt. And that ain't just for Jermell Charlo. That's for any fighter that's pulling out of a fight that's scheduled less than a month or a month out, knowing that people have, got to save them, book flights, them book tickets, them purchase tickets, only to see you fight. Like, you should have to prove that shit. Like, you can't, like, this mental illness, oh, I got COVID, oh, I'm injured, oh, my back hurt if you Jermell Charlo, oh, my back hurt or my shoulder hurt if you Demetrius Andrade, or my hand hurt if you Jermell Charlo. Like, all of these things, and Jermell Charlo did show proof, but it shouldn't even be an option. Nobody should just be able to get in front of a camera and tell you, yeah, I ain't fighting no more because I'm injured. And they ain't got to prove that shit. They ain't got to really tell you what the injury is, get a timeline for return. And then if they don't meet that timeline, have to report back on what's going on. Is the injury worse? Is it better? Did they go back to the gym quicker? Boxing too secretive with that shit, and it needs to change. Not on Jermell Charlo part, because I don't believe he lying, bro. I don't believe he ducking no favor. Just boxing as a whole, bro. If it's going to get better and become a better sport and easier to follow, this is one of the things, along with all them damn sanctioning bodies and people coming together to make big fights and, all these, getting rid of all these voluntary defenses, catch weights, rehydration clause. So much wrong with boxing, but fighters not having to tell fans what their injury is or having to prove what the injury is, that shit need to get the hell up out of boxing, bro. But anyway, Jermell Charlo injured to his hand. So I don't, like, people saying that he faking it, I wanted to say all of that for them. Like, bro, get out of here with that shit. He ain't faking the shit. He ain't gave you no reason to believe that he gonna lie and no shit like that. But also, I do understand that there needs to be some sort of change in the rules of boxing where they can't just tell us anything and we supposed to believe it, because some of these dudes do be lying about injuries to miss out on fights, the ticket sales ain't doing well, and all that shit, pushing shit back. Like, that's all bullshit, so I agree with that. But here's the main part, right? Why this is going to make it easier for us to get the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight that we all want. Jermell Charlo is not an option. Bud Crawford just fought his voluntary defense against Avanesyan, so he's going to have a mandatory coming up soon. And right now in that mandatory spot is Jerome Boots Ennis. And Jermell Charlo even being an option, postponing that fight to Tim Tszyu means he's postponing his WBO mandatory. And so whenever he finally does fight Tim Tszyu, whether it's in the spring, whether it's in the summer, that means from the time that he fights Tim Tszyu, he's going to have a whole nother year. Before he has any kind of mandatory due. So Crawford's only hope is to wait, because we already explained how PBC, they ain't making no deal with you unless it's Errol Spence. So you ain't just gonna make a deal for the fight. So to force the fight to like be the mandatory and move up and shit, he have to wait all the way until 1 year from whenever Jermell Charlo and Tim Tszyu do fight. So whenever they do fight, Terence Crawford can't try to move up to be that mandatory until a whole year from that date, or you gotta hope that the title get vacated, then he can move up and fight for it that way. So by pushing that fight back, it pushes back the ability of Terence Crawford to do that shit and try to become the mandatory. So in turn, that gives us a better chance of getting the Errol Spence fight. And then Terence Crawford, you looking down your rankings, You get a mandatory call, and you know it's Jerron Boots Ennis. Do you want to fight a tough-ass fight against Jerron Boots Ennis for less money, or you want to fight a tough-ass fight against Errol Spence for more money? And then if you Errol Spence, you got your accident going on, right? You had your accident, bro, and that pushed whatever fight announcement you was going to make. We believe that it was Keith Thurman because Errol Spence already went to the WBA and asked could he go ahead and exercise his WBC mandatory against Keith Thurman. They approved that shit back in November. So we believe that the fight was Keith Thurman for the WBC. If you Errol Spence, you got to ask yourself, bro, if you fight Keith Thurman for that WBC mando, do you want to risk Jerron Boots Ennis being your IBF mandatory? Boots looking at both of them wanting his shot, bro. So they gonna either end up having to fight each other, they gonna fight Boots. So with the accident pushing Errol Spence's announcement back, with the injury pushing Jermell Charlo's fight date with Tim Tszyu back, with all that shit happening, it makes Errol Spence and Terence Crawford look at each other and they gonna have to realize either you gonna fight each other in a tough ass fight for the biggest bag that either of y'all gonna make in your career, or you going to have to fight somebody like Jerron Boots Ennis for less money. Or if you Earl and you go ahead and take the fight with Keith Thurman for less money, and then you try to make a fight with Terence Crawford at the end of the year, he could have his mandatory get called in Jerron Boots Ennis. While you doing all of that, because Ennis is about to fight his IBF title eliminator right in a week and a half from now, bro. So they gotta get they gotta get this shit together, man, or move up. Like it's time for them to either fight each other or get the hell out the way. And this Jermell Charlo situation with his injury and the Errol Spence situation with his car accident, I believe, in my humble opinion, that is going to lead to them having to fight sooner than later. And so in my world, what I'm pushing for and what I believe is going to happen and what I think should happen, Errol Spence, whatever fight announcement he was going to make with Keith Thurman, I think they put that shit on hold. Al Heyman, PBC, tell Keith Thurman, man, you're going to have to wait. We're going to get you your title shot, but you're going to have to wait. And then they need to go back to the negotiation table with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford and make that fight happen. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at a tough opponent for less money when they need to just fight each other for the biggest bag so we can finally see who reigns supreme. And then what they do after that is what they do after that. But we need that fight. So while I hate it for Jermell Charlo, while I think that him versus Tim Tszyu is a really good fight, I think that it's a blessing in disguise if you're somebody that wants the Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fight because it limits the options for both fighters moving forward, specifically Terence Crawford, and then Errol Spence is already running out of options. He already got the IBF breathing down his throat. He got the WBC and Keith Thurman breathing down his throat. Now if you Terence Crawford, now you can't move up to 154. You just fought a voluntary defense against Avanesian and you saw the reaction to that shit. You about to do another voluntary defense? Or you gonna fight a tough ass Keith fucking Jerron Ennis or some shit? Or you gonna go ahead and make the fight with Spence? So they need each other, man. It's the biggest bag, and they got tough fights all around them. And if you got tough fights all around you, you might as well take the tough fight that's gonna get you the biggest bag and mean the most for your legacy. So that's what I think of the whole situation. I think we're getting one step closer, and I ain't giving up the faith. That don't change the fact that Terence Bud Crawford got me pissed off because he did duck out on that fight, and we wouldn't even have to make videos like this. We wouldn't even have to talk like this if he would have just did what he needed to do in the first place, and that's signing to fight Errol Spence instead of signing to fight David Avanesian, bro. Tell me where I'm wrong at. But y'all let me know what y'all think. Comment down below, smash my like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, turn on your notifications, and go follow me on Twitter at KOBoxing86TV. Appreciate y'all watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. And with that, we out of here. Peace out, y'all.